A beefalo. What's Calamity like?
She's a firecracker. I have a buffalo that I ride as well, and she's very comparable. Just I don't know. She's like a buffalo isn't a domesticated species, and so they tend to really have a high flight, a high fight, a lot of that. And so it's taken the whole first 2 years of her life to try and get her tamed down a bit.
I watched a video. She didn't want you on her back.
No, she wasn't a huge fan of it at first, but after the initial few seconds of her bucking around a little bit, then she settled right in. We took her on a pretty big ride up in the mountains there when we did our first ride, and then in Dunmore there, we went out with a photographer, and she was the all-star. My buffalo was the one being kind of a dummy.
Okay, I think we're burying the lead here. People are like, "Did she say a beefalo?" Like, so what kind of a cow? How does this happen? I have so many questions. So, is the bison that you own the father?
No, no,
Okay.
it isn't.
Okay.
So, some clients of mine, they have Watusis now. So their bull was a Watusi bull, which is kind of like a longhorn, but I don't know if you've ever seen the longhorns that have the horns that are like maybe 10 inches in diameter and I don't know, 8 feet tip to tip. Like they come from Africa. They're the biggest horned cattle in the world. And it's intimidating seeing them. And they have quite the reputation themselves for being kind of wild and untouchable. But anyways, so they have this Watusi bull, and they had a bison cow that they just kept out in the field with the rest of their cows. And it just so happened this spring a couple of years ago, had Calamity, and it was a bit of a surprise to them. But yeah, she came out all splashed up with lots of white on her and like splotchy coloring. So she kind of took some of the coloring from the Watusi, but she had quite the little woolly buffalo look at the same time.
Yeah. She's quite, and she's got the horns, but not as dramatic as what you would think of from a longhorn, right?
Yeah, it's really a unique looking animal. Honestly, when she's haired up in the winter, a lot of people think she's a yak,
Okay.
which yeah, totally bizarre.
Is this the first beefalo you've known, or have you known other
Yeah.
beefalos? Okay.
So I've spoken with Tim Edwards. He was one of the top performers who rode longhorns, and he had a buffalo he used on the movie scene. And he told me he only knew of one person that tried to saddle break a beefalo, and it didn't work. And so I think we're kind of breaking ground in history when it comes to beefalo riding.
Well, you also gave her quite a name too, Calamity. You sort of
I
suggest.
always kind of make the joke she doesn't live up to the name lives up to her. She's
Okay, so what did you do, you think, that made it work? Because obviously it's taken some work to get to this point, and you know what you're doing, but what was your secret?
So I got her when she was just a couple months old. We pulled her off the cow, and I started bottle feeding her, just because I knew if we didn't start then, we would be in trouble. And even then, like I kept her in a small contained area for the first few months, and she would be looking for a way out when I was getting in, even with her food, and then I'd talk her into eating. And I honestly didn't have any idea if it was going to work for the first year and a half, because she was just like high octane powerhouse, and she really didn't like anyone but me. Like there was questionable days whether she liked me or not either, but anyone else steps in the pen and she's kind of got a wild eye. And but this spring I've been just going in segments of like 2 weeks. Okay, I got some time working with her, and she's really quieted down a lot for me. And so that's kind of, this spring was the moment that I'm like, I think this is going to work. And then we put that first ride on her, and I was like, oh yeah, give us 5-6 rides, and I think she's going to be going great down the path of success.
Okay, so you rode her in Dunsmore. What was the reaction of people?
I think people loved it. The first night, my one employee rode her. She came out of the chute bucking, and everyone was just like, "What? This is the second ride on a beefalo." And actually, we just got her like in shade rode her till she quit bucking, and then we walked past the crowd, and then had to move on with the next part of my act. And so then he hopped off, and I was like, dang it, like that's the time that I'm like, we needed to go for like a 20-minute ride. Like she just got good. But I think people really, really liked her. She's just so unique, something that
and what
isn't seen.
What are your plans for her? What are you going to do with Calamity?
I think long term she'll be very similar to my bison. So I have a YouTube channel, TikTok, Facebook, and so I make a lot of videos, reels, things like that. And I think she'll fit right in because she's so unique and powerful looking, and just she's got so much character. I think she'll be a fun addition to my social media team.
Well, I sure enjoyed watching her this morning, getting ready for this interview. It was super fun. All right. Well, Joel, thank you for joining us this morning on the program.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.